Welcome to what's up guys, welcome to another video. So I thought I would do another video today talking about these sacconejolys. So it's fair to say that they're garnering a lot of attention on TikTok recently. There's been a lot of TikTok videos, people talking about Jonathan Jolie. I think, it's good the creepy thing that the creepy things that he's like the inappropriate things that he's doing are starting to get a lot of attention. People and obviously, more and more people now are starting to kind of wake up and starting to wake up a little bit and and starting to see what sort of person he is. And see him for what he really is. Um, I think the problem with with these honey judges, they do not care about the safety of their kids. They've been warned before about the dangers that they're exposing their kids to and subjecting their kids to, and they just don't care at the end of the day. It's like the other day on it, Anna uploaded a video to TikTok and Instagram doing an interview with Alessia. Alessia wearing the bra top in the video, and again didn't seem to really to be. I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be wearing crop tops and things like that at that age, but they should be showing their 8-year-old child, in videos wearing bra tops and crop tops and things like that. That to me just doesn't seem appropriate for a parent to be showing their child like that on the internet. Obviously, I just don't think it's safe, for a parent to show a child, to be showing their child on the internet in crop tops, bra tops, and things like that. There's just no real need for that. It's like where the thing is with the Honey Jollies, it feels like there's no sense of there's no real sense of safeguarding, going on with those two. It feels like it doesn't feel like they ever really genuinely cared about the safety of their kids. It's never felt like that has been a priority for them, and it should. I mean, we all know that child safety should be a number one priority for any parent, but Jonathan and Anna are two individuals where it feels like the safety of their kids and not, is not a priority as it should be. You know, it's like, in what way are they protecting their kids? They're not doing that. We all know they should be protecting their kids and keeping their kids safe, but they're not exactly doing that. You look at the things that Jonathan does. There's nothing that's, as I said, briefly in the video, I did yesterday. I said, the things that he does are just not okay and acceptable, and I can't understand how anybody can look at the things that he's doing and think that it's actually okay and acceptable for him to be doing what he's doing, like using the thumbnails that he's using, etc., etc. Like, there's just no excuses for that, it has to be said. I mean, I honestly, it honestly amazes me just how little they actually care about the safety of their kids. You know, I haven't seen a single thing that has convinced me they do care about the safety of their kids. I feel like they need to. They've not exactly proven that they do care about the safety of their kids. Like they don't care about the way that they're putting their kids out there on the internet. I think, neither of them, are better than the other. They're both just as bad as one another. Um, I do think they should be reported to the authorities. I've said that for a long time. If they deserve it to do what they deserve to be reported. And I think if somebody did report them, if people did report them to the authorities, I would applaud them for that. I'm very tempted to do that myself. I think someone needs to have, like, somebody who's in that position of authority really needs to have a very, very serious conversation with them about the importance of child safety, and about safeguarding their kids and protecting their kids. Because they're not doing that. They're not protecting or safeguarding their kids in the way that they should be. They're not keeping their kids safe. They're basically exposing their kids to child pedos and child predators on an almost practically on a regular basis. And they shouldn't be allowed to keep getting away with that. they shouldn't be allowed to keep getting away with showing such a blatant disregard for the safety of their kids. It's like, when are they gonna start actually giving a fuck about the safety of their kids? Because they never have done. You know, I mean, you look at the amount of times people told them not to show the school logo or name of their kids' school in their videos, and they continued doing that despite the fact that people were warning them not to do that. I've seen people commenting on Jonathan's videos telling him not to have a lassie in the thumbnails with her mouth and legs wide open, and he continued to do that. People have told him not to show his children in bikinis and things like that. He's continued to do it. This is the thing, when people tell them not to do something, people are usually telling them to do that for a perfectly good reason. When people, it's for child's sake. When people are telling them not to do something, it's usually for the safety of their kids. It's usually people telling them to keep their kids safe, or trying to tell them to keep their kids safe. That's what people are telling them to do. People are telling them to keep their kids safe, and they're just refusing to listen. They don't listen to people when they're advised not to do something, or they're told, they're warned not to do something. They just don't take any notice. To be honest. I think there's no point in any of us saying anything. I think maybe if somebody who was in a position of authority stepped in, maybe they would actually maybe they would actually take some notice of that. Maybe they would actually listen to that. And maybe they would actually listen to that. It's just ridiculous. Like, the fact that people can't see that. Some people still can't see that what they're doing is wrong, because it is. You know, Like, they just don't care at all about the safety of their kids. They're a bit like the Inhams. Like, the Inhams, again, to me, they've never really cared about the safety of their kids, and Anna and Jonathan aren't any different. Um, there are a lot of families. I think these days, family flooding in general, it's just. I feel like it's a good thing that people are raising awareness to the bad side of family vlogging, and showing why family vlogging channels are actually so bad. I think that the fact that more and more sort of awareness is being raised for that, towards that, is actually really, really really, really good, and it's a very positive thing. um and to me, it's kind of taking small steps in the right direction. If I'm being honest. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like, I think it's like some people refuse to see that there is a bad side to family vlogging channels. Like, people only choose to see the good side to these family vlogging channels. They don't see the bad side to it, but there is a bad side to a lot of these family vlogging channels. And I feel that, like, there are enough reasons to say that these family vlogging channels should be banned. you know, when you think about the fact that most of these family vlogging channels are just parents basically using it as content for their own financial gain, that is a big part of the reason why family vlogging channels should be banned. Because it's basically just parents making money off their kids, and that is in every way disgusting and wrong, on every level. It's hard not to get pissed off with not to kind of applaud people for the fact that they're kind of, drawing attention to the things that Jonathan is doing, Jonathan Sacconejolys is doing, and showing, the bad side to what he's doing. But, you know, I mean, if you got to think about it, right? You've got parents exploiting their kids. Basically, some parents are basically using their kids as pedo bait, which is what some of them are doing, and it's actually disgusting. The way that some of these people are exploiting it and have exploited their kids is just wrong on every level. And I think people need to, there are still some people who need to wake up and realise that things are not also well and good with these, with these family friendly channels. And the problem is, things might seem like they're also well and good on camera, but none of us really know the full extent of what could be going on behind closed doors. And people like the Inhams, the sacconejolys, you always kind of, I've always gotten that feeling with them that it could definitely be going, more going on behind the scenes, behind closed doors that we don't genuinely get to see. Like, it could be a lot of dodgy stuff going on off camera that they don't show. And, it's always felt like that with people like the Inhams and the sacconejolys. It's always felt like there could be more going on behind closed doors and what we actually know, and obviously what we actually get to see. There probably is a hell of a lot of stuff that we don't that goes on cameras, that goes on obviously behind closed doors that we don't get to see. Um, and I think at the end of the day, I think Jonathan has proven himself. Jonathan Jolie has proven himself to be someone that cannot be trusted. I mean, obviously he's not done anything as bad as what Brazilian did, but he's still not someone to be trusted. Everything about him, he has massive, I'm a massive fucking creep written all over him. And that's just as bad. She's basically enabling him to do what he's doing. And she's not exactly innocent. She's not exactly Little Miss Innocent in all of this. She's just as in the wrong as Jonathan is. If not more in the wrong. If she as a mother should be putting a stop to it, but she's not. She is enabling him to do what he's doing. And I'm not gonna apologise for saying what needed saying. I think a lot of this needed to be said. You know, I mean, I've given my thoughts on this. As I said yesterday, it's bad enough that Jonathan has Edie and Amelia in the thumbnails with their mouths and everything right up. That's bad enough. But it's even worse knowing that he has Alessia in the thumbnails with her mouth and legs wide open and everything. And she's only 8 years old. It's like, why the fuck does he need to have his 8-year-old child in thumbnails with her mouth and legs wide open? That's the one. That's what I would love to get the understanding of. And it's like, all you've got to do is look at his channel, go through all of his videos, and just look at the thumbnails that he's using, and you'll see what people's issues are. You will see that, you'll see why people are saying that Jonathan is such a people. You would get a very good idea of why people are saying that. I think people have perfectly good reasons for saying Jonathan's a pervert, a child predator, etc., etc. Because he is a pervert and a child predator. And these thumbnails prove what he is. Now, how can people? This just depends. Like, how can people not? Some people not see what Jonathan is when it's staring them right in the fucking face. You don't have to be an idiot or blind to see what Jonathan is and to see that he ain't the perfect, the perfect father that he's made out. I mean, perfect fathers don't flipping, use their kids as pedo bait, or don't use thumbnails that are absolutely extremely disgusting and inappropriate and somewhat disturbing. Good, decent, great fathers, whatever. Decent fathers don't do the things that he's doing. Decent fathers a decent father wouldn't feel the need to use the sort of thumbnails that Jonathan uses for his videos. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm gonna say. So I hope you enjoyed this video anyway, and I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye.